Are you an expert mingler? Do you know how to mingle with the enemy? This is Robert Manni, host of Guys TV. And this week my special guest is Jean Martinet, and she's written a book about just that. I've also got the Who Gets It guys, and they've written a book about how corporations can find, motivate, and retain their top talent. It all starts right here on Guys TV, and you can also catch me on Guys Radio, my worldwide podcast, and on KCAA right here in Southern California. Guys Radio, Guys TV, thanks for your support. Okay, Guys Radio, we're at the interview portion of our show today, and I've got two very special guests. They've written a book called Who Gets It? How to Find, Motivate, and Retain Top Talent. Dan Hoffend and Eric Hoffend. And let me tell you a little bit about them. They're two brothers, I guess, and they've put together this book to really help people in business because it is so hard to find and retain good talent these days. And then when you have the COVID situation and everything else, it just adds another layer of uncertainty and anxiety and unpredictable behavior. So let me tell you a little bit about these two fellas. Dan Hoffend, 35-year career, including building, developing companies that extend beyond their comfort zones to excel in new adventures and expand revenue. He's used authenticity and emotional intelligence to attract and develop high-performing teams to achieve seemingly impossible goals. A strong purpose and resilience have become the drivers behind his success. His most recent organization was built from both organic growth and strategic acquisitions to become an international $500 million division dedicated to creating brand experiences that drive action for many top organizations of the world, such as McDonald's, Microsoft, Sanofi, Qualcomm, 3M, Disney, and Wyndham. So real go-getter, Dan. And his brother, I guess, Eric, founder, author, performance expert, 25 plus year career sales exec in biz dev, focused around the trade show industry. I've been in many trade shows and stood and worked the booth, so I know
that
what it's all about, and I don't miss it. He has built and managed stellar sales teams, delivering exceptional sales results with revenues upwards of 400 million. His ability to teach, develop, empathize, and mentor helped him form meaningful connections, cultivate dedicated and loyal employees, and inspired countless people to reach their full potential. They put together this book based on their experiences in business and seeing all the crazy things that are happening these days. How to find, motivate, and retain top talent. Who gets it? Welcome, Dan and Eric Hoffend, to Guys Radio.
Thank you, Robert.
So I'm so thrilled that you're here, and congrats on the book. But let's start right at the beginning, so we'll get rolling here. The name of the book is Who Gets It? How to Find, Motivate, and Retain Top Talent. So what does Who Gets It mean? And what are you guys trying to accomplish by writing this book?
Well, it's really about a book that helps create a lifestyle, a better lifestyle for people and the companies they work for. You can get it as an individual and you can get it as a company. And having a guideline to help you find, motivate, and retain that top talent is extremely important today, especially coming out of the pandemic we had. A lot of people are looking, should I jump? Should I stay? Huge percentages are looking at their career now and saying, is this going to be right for me or not? And so how do you create a company culture that gets it, that understands how to move businesses forward, and how do you create see those talent and make sure that they're operating in a high performance level? And that's what we're looking for.
And as a vision statement, I'd say we're trying to create a world where everyone gets it. And on page 3 of the book, it goes right into it. And it says, wouldn't it be great if you went to breakfast and the server knew what you wanted, made it perfect just the way you like it, knew the score of the game last night, and you get to work and your employees are there supporting your objectives and they understand your vision, and you talk to your boss and he or she has a career path outlined for you so you can see your future. That's everyone you touching all day long gets it. What a wonderful world it would be.
Well stated. Why do you guys think that companies have so much trouble finding, motivating, and retaining top talent, particularly in this economy today that's on a comeback mode, and there's so many people who are out of work or been downsized or whatever, or had changes because of the pandemic, whatever? Why are they having these issues even more so now than ever?
Well, part of it is a matchup of their core values, their culture, if you will, and then the reality of what their policies are. So I can have a core value that says we're dedicated to the customer, but if my policies work against that core value, it makes it very frustrating for the employee to work in that environment. And it happens all the time. Eric, you've got like a million suggestions.
There's a million suggestions in one. And one critical one is listen to the frontline worker. The frontline worker, let's take a call center, for example. What are they challenged with? What are their issues? How do we solve those? Because they're touching the customer. Policies sometimes are created in the ivory tower where people aren't touching the customers based on revenue, typically, not actual experience or customer service. And as Dan mentioned, they fail to represent their core values when they do that. And it fails to have a good message with the employee and with the customer. So frontline workers and them determining policy and having feedback, I think, is critically important.
I was at a doctor's appointment a couple of days ago, and I couldn't find the place. I'm driving around, I got my GPS on the whole thing, but I could not find it. And I finally walked in the place after searching around, asking people, getting out of my car and finding out where it was. And the first thing I did, I walked in there and I said, geez, I had trouble finding this location. And the person at the desk was like, oh, everybody says that. I'm like, everybody says that. Maybe we should do something about it. So if there's a question, there's a comment that just comes up over and over again, we don't like this particular penalty charge, there's a surcharge on this, whatever it is, but yet you continue to operate in that manner, even though you know that the customer is rebounding against that. You continue to do it because it's just the way the policy is stated, and you don't have to do that. There are other ways of doing it.
And coming out of the pandemic, so many people are disconnected from their employees, the remote workers, the remote working from home. More than ever before, managers just aren't engaging and asking and showing empathy and trying to train and onboard new employees. It's a huge challenge right now coming out of this pandemic.
Okay, how do you guys identify companies that you want to work with, and what is your entry point into these companies? Because you have a lot of there's service companies, there's sales-driven companies, and sometimes, and if it's a public company, they have to they're beholden to the shareholder. So, and that could be that could include great sales, but not treating your people that well. And we've seen that with a lot of mega corporations these days. So how do you identify your targeted prospects, and how do you go into those companies?
You have to look at initially the core values. What do you stand for? What is your purpose? What are your objectives as an organization? And then what are your core values? List your core values out. Then you review how those core values match up to the policies that you create. If there's a negative experience by the public, we call that logic. So logic is the public, and they're talking and discussing about your particular policies. Do they work, or do they match correctly? If I have an employee that constantly gets hit with the same negative experience over and over again to a customer, eventually I'm going to leave. I could be the best, most talented person they've ever hired, but I cannot take an environment like that. So you have to find those companies that have an alignment to the core values. Like Eric, that Trader Joe's is a great story.
Trader Joe's was one of our Gets It companies in the book. And one of their core values was creating a neighborhood grocery experience. And we had a person, one of the many we interviewed along the process, been looking at Gets It companies, and she was a regular at this particular Trader Joe's. She came into the grocery store, visibly upset, crying, upset, and the person at the counter, the cashier, said, "Are you okay? What's the problem?" Parent recently passed away, very emotional. The cashier gave her a bouquet of flowers. We're not suggesting that everyone give away free flowers all day long, but that particular employee is empowered by their organization, by their Gets It company, to take action when they see it fit to create that neighborhood grocery feeling. That person who got those flowers is never going anywhere else again. You know it, it's for sure.
So if you're a talented person, you want to work for a company that allows you the ability or the freedom to make things right, to create a special moment. And that's how you balance the Gets It type personality with a Gets It organization that understands how to do that.
So and I think I'm sorry, the question was, how do we find these customers, Robert?
Yeah, and how do you get into the companies?
And how do we get into the companies? A lot of turnover, employee turnover is huge. So if there's a company that particular challenge with turnover, onboarding is a huge challenge. Anyone that is having issues with HR. Training is critically important. Finding those companies that have a lack in those areas, I think, are where we're targeting.
Okay, some people say, HR, they're kind of trained to say no and keep people out. And the people who are on the front lines, they know who they want to hire and how they want to hire. How do you, when you're working with a company, do you find any type of necessary balancing act working with those two departments?
I think when it comes to HR, empathy is number one. Empathy is a huge feature within our book that we talk about, and having that empathetic. We did a video recently where there was empathy versus sympathy. And in the video that we did, it's 45 seconds long. We showed me in a hole, Dan's up on top, and he's saying, and I'm yelling, I need help to get out of this hole. Help me. And he's like, hey, at least it's not raining. I'm like, that sounds like sympathy. Hey, I feel bad for you. That's sympathy. How about I come down there with this rope and help you get out of that hole, because I've been where you are, and I'm going to show you an empathetic process to get you where you need to be. I think empathy is critically important in HR, and it needs to be a core value of HR. So that you can get personal with someone and really appreciate, walk in their moccasins, if you will, to get them where they need to be.
How do you handle, sales, which is some companies are sales-driven companies, and where results trump everything else? How do you deal with a company that's like that? That might, it could be B2B. They might not even be the typical B2C customer out there that they're dealing with. They're just churning, and it's all about the bottom line. How do you find that some of these companies, they don't have a set of core values or a mission statement, or they just don't care, or what is it, and what can you do about that?
Well, we do.
AT&T, Dan.
Yeah.
AT&T.
Yeah, AT&T is a classic example. AT&T has the normal mission statement, the normal objectives and their core values, et cetera, but they don't follow it. So you're creating an ideology that you don't really match to. So if all companies are engaged in sales. There's so many companies, I haven't talked to one in 1,000 years that doesn't want growth. So or perfection, if you will. And both of those things require certain that you're moving in the right direction. But like Eric started with the discussion about talking to your front line. AT&T is clearly not talking to the front line, and because they're getting complaints consistently over and over again about specific policies, whether it's a commitment for their phone, or if it's a trade-in value for the phone, and they get there and there's a trick behind it, and it really isn't the trade-in value. It's really just if they decide to do it. And so it goes back and forth, and ultimately you will create a negative experience, and your sales will be devoured. So in a sales type organization, you're really looking for, how do we create a value with our customers, or even if they're B2B or B2C, that will move our business forward. And if you're constantly antagonizing your customer, it's not going to work. And even the large corporations, we see it over and over again. Somebody somewhere creates this policy. Let's look at the numbers. Hey, if we create this deal, this negativity, we're going to get extra $30 every time somebody gets a new phone. But the reality of it is, at some point in time, people say, stop. No, I'm not going to do it.
Look at the airlines business. Look at the surcharges. I mean, the bag fees and the overhead. My bags. I'm carrying my bag on, and I'm getting billed from Frontier Airlines. Then you look at Southwest. They kind of just include it all most often. And you look at what they're trying to. I mean, make it simple for the customer. Make it easier. B gets it. If I looked at Southwest versus American Airlines, I'm going to lean. They're all hard. It's a difficult industry, but Southwest to me is a gets a company. American Airlines doesn't get it. Sonos speakers. It's a high-end speaker. Dan and I are both big fans. They get it. They're not the cheapest brand. They are incredibly customer focused. When you call them, you talk to a human being. And that sort of gets a company is making the revenues, because I'll pay more for that level of service, that level of engagement, that level of gets it. So yeah, the bean counters with the right culture, you're going to make up the money on the other end.
Okay, guys, radio. My special guests are Dan and Eric Hoffend. The name of the book is Who Gets It? How to Find, Motivate, and Retain Top Talent. It's interesting because some categories you mentioned AT&T, but if you look at a deal for AT&T and then you go to Verizon, you're going to basically get the same deal. There's other industries like airlines where you will find, okay, maybe JetBlue or Southwest, whatever, they have some different amenities that you can get that make your experience a little bit better. So when you're prospecting for what your work, do you look at companies that, you mentioned AT&T, do you look for companies that have some elasticity in the way they can do their business?
I think everybody can. It feels like if I go to AT&T, it's the same deal as Verizon, but then there's T-Mobile that has a different sort of philosophy on how they look at it. So there are differences. And ultimately, are you following your competitor or are you leading? Glance over your competitor, sure, but follow your competitor. I don't care if they're bigger than you or smaller than you. You should be leading the way. And if that takes hard work and hard adjustment to what your current stance is on certain areas, then so be it. But this is why in our book we talk about the bell curve, the gets it bell curve. And this is clearly a bell curve, and it has 5 categories in it. It doesn't get it, doesn't care, comfort zone, energized, and gets it. Those are the 5 categories a company can find themselves in, a person can find themselves in. You can find that yourself in a marriage. You say, geez, I'm in comfort zone in my marriage. We're just kind of clicking along, whatever. It's all good, but it's not bad, it's not great. But don't you want to be energized? So what are the things that I can do in my personal life to energize myself, to push me up the curve? Same thing with a company. There are ways to do that, to motivate the company, to drive things forward. But if you're American Airlines and you're making your employees miserable by flight attendants miserable, then they're going to be miserable to the passengers, and that's exactly what you get right now.
How do you use the bell curve? Because thank you, that was going to be my next question. How do you deploy that? And do the companies have to do a self-evaluation to say, okay, where are we on the bell curve? And then do employees need to be graded according to this bell curve? And do they have to do a self-assessment? How does the whole bell curve thing work for you guys? Because it's a key component of what you sell, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
the big differentiator is the fact that we don't say that you are at this particular point on the performance curve forever, for a year. You can move up and down this curve daily, weekly, annually, whatever it is. And as a manager, recognizing when my talent is slipping down the curve from energized zone, and energized is like when you start a new job. You are energized. You are ready to take on the world. You're one step away from truly getting it. With good onboarding, good recruiting, and good training, you can get up into the gets it zone. If you don't get, as a simple example, if you don't get that good onboarding, you're going to slip into comfort zone, and you're going to slip into doesn't care. And you're going to be sitting there going, why did I join this company? No one cares about me. No one. So there's lots of factors that can push people up and down this curve. We try to teach people to push them up the curve and watch for signs and signals that they're falling down, and how to recruit and energize and jump them back up the curve.
So currently the normal HR is an annual review or maybe a biannual review, and it's number related. 2.5 is doesn't meet expectation, 3 meets expectation, 4 is
Right.
greater. If you give someone a 2.5 in an annual review, there's going to be a fight.
It's going to be a
Sorry,
fight.
get your gloves up because there's going to be a fight. If you say to them, I feel like you're in doesn't care comfort zone, like you're in a comfort zone, you're just kind of going through, you're coming in on time and you're leaving on time, it's all good, but you're just doing your job that you've always been doing for the last several years. Do you want more? How can I energize you to get you up this curve? And what we do when we have an assessment, the first thing we do is we say, okay, put your employees on the bell curve. And the bell curve is a bell because you have high end people, not very many, and not very many on the low end, a lot of people in the middle. So that's all cool. But what we found is most people, when they first do it, everybody's to the right side, the high performance. And then when we talk about it, then people start drifting down. Nah, he's not really an energized, he doesn't care. And even some drift into don't get it. So it's managing those people. And are they a doesn't care because they truly don't care and they're looking for another job? Or did they fall out of gets it? Were they a top performer and they just fell out of that top performance?
Interesting. So, what would be your best advice to companies out there in terms of how to move forward, particularly in these times, changing times, and also for employees?
It's changing the vernacular that we use, and we were just shocked that no one has ever coined "gets it." Everyone says it. Oh, that guy gets it. That guy doesn't get it, or that girl gets it and doesn't get it, and so forth. But what does it mean? What does those terms truly mean? And teaching that terminology and those mindsets, I think is critically important so that manager and employee understand and begin to recognize when themselves fall down the curve and when they go up the curve. How does it make them feel, and how did that happen? But solid managers are really critical in getting people up the motivation.
Robert, I would guess that you were probably looked at your own career and said, I know when I was in this zone, I know when I was this zone.
Sure.
Everybody falls into these categories. And sometimes it's a good thing. I fall into don't care. I just don't appreciate how my manager works with me, the company I work for, et cetera. I'm going to start looking. And you go to a new company and everything's great. And you get back to energize and you're back doing it, or you're doing your own thing, or you move out to San Diego, whatever it might be. You're doing things to motivate yourself, and understanding what motivates you is really important. And then as a manager, understanding what motivates your team is super important, and it goes both ways.
All right. Good stuff, guys. Well done. Who Gets It? Dan and Eric Hoffend. The name of the book, again, Who Gets It? How to Find, Motivate, and Retain Top Talent. You're doing good work, guys. Tell everybody where they can find out more about you and get your book.
You can go to our website, getsitguys.com. We on Instagram, Gets It Guys, LinkedIn, Gets It Guys. We'd love to see you. We'd love to talk to you.
Okay. Thanks so much, guys. Great job.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay. That was good. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it was good.
Love it.
I don't know if we covered everything you want to cover, but I want to give you guys a chance to get all the salient points in organically, and that happened. And thank you for bringing up bell curve, because I was looking, I'm like, I'm running out of time, and I got to talk about the bell curve.
Yeah, so that was hugely important. It's a big.
The question I had is, how do you then? We didn't have time for it, but how do you then assess? Do you put it on the companies to like, okay, create a bell curve for your organization and your people? And then do you help them manage the bell curve and those employees? And because it's a sliding scale, it's not a quarterly evaluation. It's an ongoing, okay. Right. And maybe you can do this as a high achiever, and you do something else as don't care, because they don't care about that aspect of the job or something like that. How do you manage the bell curve, I guess, is my question. I failed to ask.
One of the things we kind of hit on, the don't care people could be a high performer that maybe lost a big account, talking about the sales end of it, lost a big account. And now it drifted down to nobody respects me anymore. I lost this big account. I'm depressed. And the manager's thinking, oh, I don't want to highlight this person anymore. I don't want to give them something new or influential to do. So it impedes them, when the opposite is true. They were a high performer, they can be a high performer again. So that means motivate them by giving them an opportunity. Give them something, delegate something to do. We find too that the other area, delegation, is so important. If you come to me as the manager and you say, I'm so busy. To me as the employee, I'm like, well, he obviously doesn't trust me. He's not giving me anything, he's not delegating anything to me. Now, the other turn, if somebody that I trust and know and respect delegates something to me, I am really jazzed about it. Like, wow, I'm not going to let him down. I want to make sure I do it right.
The trade show industry, I know, Eric, you're involved in that, I think is highly ineffective. I don't know about you, and this is not against you personally by any means, because I've worked trade shows, and it's like you stand in the booth and hopefully the right person comes by, and you waste your time on the wrong prospects. And it's like, you got to be there. But I mean, how many real leads do you get out of a trade show, unless you've got a super hot product that everybody's after? Otherwise, you're taking up space and you're getting a sore back. In my opinion, I've done it. I've worked the booth.
I would say my advice to that would be, did you go into the booth in don't care mode? Did you go in going, this is going to suck? That's going to affect it. If you went into the booth with energized mode, and did I have meetings before I went? Did I identify my prospects? Did I reach out to people? Did I push out things in social media? That's energized. That's pushing yourself up. When you're in the booth, are you reaching out? Are you engaged?
I get that. That's the human. You're right. But I'm talking about the template, if you will, of how the trade show industry works, where there's these booths that are set up, and just like the walk by, it just, there's something that doesn't work about it. It's not engaging and interactive enough.
Yeah, you're describing the hope game. So that's the,
Yeah.
I hope people come to me. I hope I hope this works successfully. I hope I land something. I hope, and there is a rampant part of that in the trade show. Now, on the other hand, if you can look at the perception value of a trade show. So if I have a 10 by 10 space and the big guys that I'm really trying to compete or grab market share from are in a 20 by 20, I'm probably going to be perceived that I'm a little guy. So if I go into the 20 by 20, the perception is, wow, who's this new player? And so we found that often it was the perception of the space that counteracted whether the person would stop or not. Now, on the other hand, there's a lot of introverts out there and they're going around with blinders on. They don't want to talk to anybody. And you want to stop them and say, well, what are you doing here then? Why are you here if you don't want to talk to anybody? But you see that. They look over at you and they, oh boy, he's looking at me. He's going to stop me and just give me some line of bull. And so you have to have ways of how do I engage? Like, remember that one year we did, because we've exhibited too many times. We did a big golf putting contest thing. And all we were doing was just getting people to putt. And then while they're waiting to putt, that was the time we could interact. But we tried to make it really fun and unique. But quite frankly, your game, somebody might say there's 10,000 attendees and you really don't care because you can't talk to 10,000 people. You can only talk to 50 if you're in a legitimate scenario.
Right.
Getting how do we get a hold of those 50? Let me zoom in on those guys some way in advance or whatever. That's really a helpful manner. I think Eric was touching on it.
Yeah, experiential marketing is huge now. And if you go to a show and you don't have a game plan or a catch or a gimmick, I mean, you're trying to out gimmick each other now. That's kind of how it goes. But yeah, I hear you, man. Standing in that booth is brutal.
I agree. You should be prepared and, to have some targets and be energized about it, because it can get old by halfway through day one. And then by that third day, when everybody's packing up and off, it's just so depressing.
Yeah, exactly. I know, you look at your leads and you're like, and then you got A, B, and C leads, and a lot of the show managers out there like, I heard he didn't follow up on half his leads. Yeah, because they sucked.
Yeah.
They were C leads. Sorry, I don't care about C leads.
We always had some signal. They'll tug my ear like, this is a student, like he's doing nothing for me. Can you get him out of my hair? We now would kind of like, we had like secret signals, like, okay,
pass them off to
unqualified guy that just wants a pen, fancy pen. Get him out of my face. So there's lots of tricks to the trade, like anything.
Well, you guys do good work. I'm very impressed, and the book is good, and it's common sense. And I think every company I worked for could benefit from this in some form or fashion. So keep up the good work, and thanks for being on the show. And
a lot of fun,
John. And I will let you guys know in advance when we're going to air it, and then we can all promote it together.
Awesome.
That's awesome. You're awesome, Robert. I really appreciate it. Send any of your business our way. We'll be happy to help those guys.
Okay.
Yeah, happy to do it.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Be well.
Thanks. See you, Robert. Peace.
If you enjoyed the interview and want to support all the helpful content we bring you each week here on Guys TV, then please subscribe now and also on my podcast, Guys Radio. Thanks for your support.